Welcome to Before Now podcast. My name is Bliss Akinyemi, but I prefer that you call me MiCi. MiCi spelled MiCi and pronounced MiSSY. That's right. If you need a pen, grab one. MiSSY. That's how you pronounce MiCi. If this is your first time listening to the pod, welcome. I'm glad to have you here. Before Now podcast is a weekly talk show where my guest and I discuss different subjects of life in relation to how we used to see them versus how we see them now. For all of you returning listeners, I have so much love in my heart for you. Thank you for coming back week after week, episode after episode to listen to what my guests and I have to say. Speaking about guests, it's just me in the house today, and I'll let you know why in a jiffy. But before we proceed, I have to say that yesterday, September 30th, was International Podcast Day. As in, well, maybe you don't know why I'm excited, and I will tell you. I'm excited because, this time last year, when I first found out there was such a thing as International Podcast Day, I felt like, it would be nice to celebrate this next year. But it was just a dream, and I'm glad that I finally made it happen. I mean, today I'm a podcaster. You can listen to me on different platforms. You know how we roll. Happy new month to every one of you. The year is running. I don't even know how to explain the speed at which it is going to an end, but we are grateful for life regardless. To all of my Nigerian family, happy Independence Day to us. I don't know what that means if you ask me, but while we are waiting for a new dispensation, let's celebrate what we have. If you don't know what the new dispensation means, maybe you should find out. Anyways, happy Independence Day, Nigeria. God bless you in the 61st year of your existence. We hope that things get better. We really hope that things get better. Can I get an amen? Okay, so I don't know if you can guess already, but it's just me in the house today. And I'm here because 12 episodes later, I think that it's about time I just come on here, have a quick chat with y'all, and just tell you what plans are in book for the season that is ending. Season 1 has been amazing. I want to believe that you all agree with me that season 1 of Before Now podcast has been amazing. So all of the guests that joined me on this season of Before Now podcast, I want to say a very big shout out to you all. On episode 1, we discussed expectations of the 20s with Sultan Gray. Thank you so much. If you've not listened, you can find it on every platform that Before Now podcast is available on. Link.tree/Before Now podcast will take you straight there. On episode 2, we discussed making money with Folari Adeboye. I want to say big thank you to Fola for being a part of the show. On episode 3, we discussed saving money with Ebon Bello. Ebon, thank you so much for making yourself available to discuss what saving has been like for you before versus now. On episode 4, we had the investment talk with Rachel Ogumoyewa. I don't know if you've listened to any of these episodes, but you really should go listen because there's a lot of information, there's a lot of laughter, there's a lot of humor in all of these conversations. On episode 5, we discussed Problem No Day Finish with Jenny Okoye, and trust me, that was one amazing conversation. On episode 6, we discussed how we choose friends with Tope Ajayi. There's a lot of germs that were dropped in that conversation, and I think you should listen. On episode 7, we discussed ghosting and cutting off friends with Precious Ibe. See, that was like the most tasking conversation I ever had, because as much as I know that I have promised to have amazing people on the pod, that was one episode where I had a terrorist who came to bully me on my own show. But it's all good because in the end, it was a great conversation. On episode 8, we discussed having friends with benefit with Iteolua Kishi. Kishi and I had a lot of interesting conversation around having friends with benefit. Just basically how we saw the issue before versus now. On episode 9, we discussed our ideal spec with Emmanuel Esang. If you have no idea who your ideal spec is, maybe you should go listen to that conversation. On episode 10, we talked about handling breakfast as it hurt, breakups, the things they made us do, how we handled them before versus now. You should go find that conversation and listen to it. On episode 11, we discussed the things that we do for love with Lulu Fadocho. If you haven't listened, go listen. Episode 12, my guest was Iyanu Oluwa. Iyanu Oluwa and I discussed looking younger than our age, and the feedback has been amazing because a lot of people can actually relate. So now let's talk about today's conversation. Why are we here? Today I want to talk about getting started. And you're probably wondering, what could there be to say about getting started if it's not the normal aspire to expire? But really, getting started is not as easy as a lot of people like to assume. Some people say it's not just to start. Some people say you should just do it. It's not just a case of just doing it, please. You have to put in a lot of effort to just do it. Even that Nike logo, that's just the swoop swoosh is not just a swoosh, because a lot of effort was put into getting that swoosh done. First of all, I would say that I describe myself as somebody who is quite inconsistent with things, which is the reason why I hardly ever start stuff, because I feel I'm not going to be able to keep up with it, or I won't want to keep up with it, because I would definitely want to lose interest in it as the days go by. But eventually, I don't know if it comes with the age, growing older, or becoming more responsible, I noticed that although I set out to have a podcast in 2019, I didn't make that happen till 2021. Now, for some reason, there was a point where it was beyond me. It was not just my fault. But truth is, the podcast didn't come to life till 2021. And now that I'm thinking about it, 13th episode, I feel so good. And the question is, why didn't I start earlier? If I started in 2019, I would probably have, I don't know, maybe 30, 40 episodes now instead of 13. I think it's about time that we all stop thinking about, if I had started 2 years ago, if I had started 4 years ago, this is where I would have been. You didn't start then. You're not there yet. So just stop the daydreaming and start what you have to start. It's not easy. To be honest, it is not easy. Things would happen to you. You would doubt yourself, especially if you're somebody that deals with I think everybody deals with imposter syndrome. I think there's a part of every one of us that keeps telling us maybe we're not good enough, maybe we're fraudsters pretending to know what we are doing. But I think also that we can silence that voice inside of our head. We can just start. You can just do it. It's not easy. One of the things you have to deal with is your imposter syndrome. One of the things you have to do is the hard work of whatever you set out to achieve. You do not just say you want to start something and then start something without any plan to keep this thing going. You have to have plans for survival. You have to have plans for consistency. So it's not just about getting started. If you want to start something, it's okay. Go ahead, start it. But what is the plan? What plan have you put in place to make sure that you are able to see this through? I know it sounds like, oh, you can blab and you can talk now just because you've had one season of your podcast. Let's see how that goes for season 2. Trust me, I know people who have just 1, 2, 3 episodes on podcasts that they had great plan for because of a lot of reasons, a lot of circumstances that came up. So another thing is you have to do it against all odds. If it's important to you, you have to do it. You have to find a way to make it happen. You want to build stuff, you want to create stuff, you want to achieve stuff, you have to find a way. It's not just about starting regardless or having a plan for consistency. What would you do if things happen that come to counter your consistency plan? That is where you bring in your best foot and put it forward and say, regardless of what happens, I would make this happen. In my case, I spent 3 months producing this podcast, but 2 months out of that 3 months, I did not have electricity in my house. I know you want to ask me, so what if you didn't have electricity in your house? But truth is, I work from home. I'm a freelancer. I don't have an office, and not having electricity in my space for 2 months meant I could have had a legit excuse to not produce the show. But instead, I found my way around it. Daunting as it was a mountain that I am glad I surmounted. Even though I had to release some of the episodes later than the scheduled time, which is 12 p.m. On 2 occasions, I released later than 12. I still did it. So if we're talking about getting started on anything, I think as much as I may not have so great of an experience to tell you about starting things, I think that the little knowledge that I have been able to garner is something I can actually share with you all and tell you that you don't just have to start. You have to start with a plan to be consistent, and you also have to start with a plan to counter any obstacle that comes in your way that tries to hinder you from being consistent. Because the truth is, people are watching. You have to keep showing up. One day you don't show up, and that is when you're going to realize that people are there. People are noticing you. They're not going to tell you well done. They're not going to say kudos. They're not going to support you. They're not going to like your page. They're not going to follow back. They're not going to support you in ways that you would see. But you don't show up once, and then you would realize that they've been watching all along. I mean, you're going to see the amount of people that are going to say, what happened? You didn't do this. You didn't do this. And then you're going to see the amount of support you get on a good day and be like, oh wow. Well, everybody by now probably knows that success is not an orphan. People want to be related with you when you get things done. People want to relate with you when you make things happen. So not because you want people to follow you, but because if it's important to you, you should do it, whether people come along or not. It's all good. If people come along, it's fine. The more the merrier. But please do not stop just because nobody's applauding you. Do not stop because nobody's saying, I see you. If the only person that sees you is your reflection in the mirror, fine. Stick with it and just do what you have to do. Another thing I want to say is, it's not a bad idea to have support systems. People who you can look up to. People who would remind you of why you started. People who would tell you, okay, I know you're tired. I know you're weary. I know you don't want to do this again, but remember how you felt at this particular that point when this happened, and it will just boost your energy level and bring back all your vibes, and next thing you're creating again. So please, if you can, get yourself a support system, a strong one. Don't use Dangote cement though. Use something stronger than that, because you would need it. You are going to want to burn out along the way, but if you have support system, people that can tell you it's fine to take a break, it's fine to breathe, but make sure you do not quit, make sure you do not stop, make sure you do not give up. And I'm beginning to sound like a motivational speaker, and you guys are used to hearing me laugh on the show a lot of times, but I had to do this because the season is ending today and we are coming back in a couple of weeks, 2-3 weeks, I don't know. Follow us on social media to know when we are coming back. It's at BeforeNow podcast on Facebook and Instagram. But I really needed to put this out because I feel this is a good message to end the season with. This is a message that you can take away while you wait for us to come back with more laughter, more vibes, cruising, inshallah, more talk about our experiences before versus now. I feel like this is a good takeaway. And we are going to be having this conversation extensively on Clubhouse. Join us on Clubhouse tomorrow evening, 7 p.m. Just head over to your Clubhouse app, search for BeforeNow Podcast Club and join. Invite members. Let's come have feedback, questions about BeforeNow Podcast. If you're looking to start your own podcast as well, this is a good opportunity to have a conversation with me, talk about the challenges, everything that I went through to produce season 1 of this podcast. It's not easy being the producer, the marketer, the everything of one show, but I made it happen. So it will be a good thing to have a conversation. Join me on Clubhouse tomorrow, 2nd of October 2021 at 7 p.m. where we're going to be having a season wrap-up chat, and I believe we're going to have a great time. You might even get the chance to chat with some of the guests that you probably loved their episode on the show. We never can tell. Let's see how that goes. Thank you so much for listening. I want to believe that you've had a great time. I have much more news because season 2 is loading, and another thing is loading, which is the podcast merch. I know a lot of people have been waiting, a lot of people have been asking me, but do not worry, the merch will soon be available for pre-order so that we can produce and get them across to you, and you can show your love for BeforeNow podcasts anywhere, anytime as you wish. I think at this point, since it's just me, I would say you can find me on Instagram. It's at MiCi. MiCi spelled MiCiBlissy. On Facebook, it's at Blista Kinyemi. Usually I would say till the next episode, ask yourself what happened before now. But since it's still the next season, let me say till the next season, ask yourself what happened before now.